This isn't about the personal feelings of politicians. This is about the welfare and the future of the people of this country. And your unexpected decision to signal that you're stepping down as Taoiseach bears all the signs of a government that has lost confidence in itself because it knows it has lost the confidence of the majority of people in this country. We don't need a shifting of the deck chairs on the Titanic. We don't need an internal election in Fine Gael. We need the people to decide. We need a general election.
Hear, hear.
That is the democratic thing to do. And you say that we think, in the opposition, that things should be perfect. No, we don't. We know perfection is not possible, but I'll tell you what we do think. In one of the richest countries in the world, we think it is shameful that we have the worst homelessness crisis in the history of the state that gets worse week in, week out, month in, month out. 4,000 children living in homelessness, 13,500 people homeless. 68% of our young adults forced to live at home with their parents when they want to live independent lives. And that's not exactly fun for the parents either. Or the shocking numbers of vulnerable children with special needs and their families waiting for assessments and basic services. The failure of this government to provide them will have an absolutely detrimental effect on their future chances in life. Or the fact that 1 million people are on public healthcare waiting lists of one kind or another, looking for healthcare. 638 people on hospital trolleys today, when they should have hospital beds. And of course, the return of mass emigration, because young people coming out of college, coming out of school, have lost confidence that there is a future for them in this country because the government can't do the most basic thing of provide them with a secure and affordable roof over their head. How damning is it in one of the richest countries in the world that tens of our thousands of our young people now believe there is no future for them in this country? They have the right to decide who leads this country. Not Fine Gael, not Fine Gael. You've had your chance. Now let the people decide and give them a general election because it is their welfare that matters.
Hear, hear. Taoiseach.
Thanks, Deputy. Just once again to restate, the government has the confidence of the Dáil and it will continue its work, albeit under a new Taoiseach and under a new leader of my party. Obviously, leaders of the other parties will remain the same. And the government will focus on the work at hand. And I acknowledge the appalling scourge in our society that homelessness is and how shameful it is. I also acknowledge the complexity of the problem and the different causes underlying it, which are varied and are certainly about a lot more than the availability of housing stock. And you just need to read the reports and the information to know the number of different causes and the complexity behind it and how difficult it is to deal with. We're doing the best we can on it, particularly by ramping up social housing to levels we haven't seen since the 1970s, and then particularly through programmes like Housing First, understanding that for some people who are homeless, it's housing first, but you need the wraparound supports as well. And those are the things that work most successfully, and those are things that have really been pushed by this government and the one that precedes it. You're right, Deputy, to say there are far too many people on waiting lists, but what you didn't say is that the number of people on waiting lists has fallen now for 2 years in a row. And this will be the third year in which waiting lists fall. And that's bucking the trend of what's happening north of the border, in Britain, and across the Western world. And that actually is not something to be diminished or discounted or reduced to nothing. You're wrong to say there's a return to mass emigration, Deputy. That's just not the case. There are lots of people leaving, there are lots of people coming back. And for most of the past 3 years, we've had roughly the same number of people who are Irish citizens returning to Ireland than we've had leaving. It's a different world, people are mobile, and they go and come for all sorts of different reasons. When it comes to people from other parts of the world, we have immigration. Many more people choosing to come here from Britain, from the rest of Europe, from other parts of the world, to work, to study and build their lives here. And those are the facts, Deputy, and I think most people know they're the facts. In relation to young adults, the correct statistics, and I appreciate there are lots of young adults living at home who don't want to be, want of their own home or want to be able to afford to rent. But the correct figures are that 13% of adults live at home. That's 1 in 7 adults live at home. That's a big group. It includes people who are 18 and 19. It includes people at home for all sorts of different reasons. It's roughly the same as 2016 and 2011. It hasn't increased. The figure used of 68% of young adults living at home is incorrect. It comes from Eurostat data that has since been corrected, and the correct figure for that age group is 33%.
Taoiseach, you see, the bit that you don't point out is that when we face this ever-worsening homelessness and housing crisis, when we face the fact that the house prices and rents in this country now mean the most basic thing people need to operate in our society, an affordable roof over their head, is out of the reach of the vast majority of working people. When you look at the chronic state of our health service, when you look at the understaffing and resourcing of special needs, our failure to vindicate the rights of people with disabilities and carers, when you look at all that hardship and all that suffering, the other side of the coin is record profits for the corporations. Vulture funds and wealth asset management companies making a fortune. Property developers and property speculators profiteering off the back of other people's misery. That is the other side of the story, and that is the legacy of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael priorities. Always privileging the profits and the interests of those at the top, while hundreds of thousands of young and working people and vulnerable people suffer.
Thank you.
That's the reality. And that is why the people, not Fine Gael, should now decide who leads the next government, because those problems are too urgent and pressing to be left up to the people who have failed our society.
Taoiseach.
The people will decide who constitute the next government when the next election comes, and the next election comes within the next year. In the meantime, the current Dáil should continue to do its work, and the current government will continue to do its work, focusing on the issues that you mentioned, like housing and health and law and order, and so many other issues. And I know we have a very deep and very real housing crisis that people experience in so many different ways. It's driven by a number of factors: a rising population, a growing economy, and a prolonged period in which very little housing in the country was built because the banks were bust and the sovereign had no money to spend. And we are now finally seeing real progress. I see it all around the country, the number of new homes being built. Travel your route out to where you live regularly, you can't not see them. Homes and houses being built all over your constituency. We see record levels of investment in social housing, and most encouragingly now, we're seeing 500 individuals and couples now every week buying their first home. And that is so encouraging to see. But it's not enough. And the last thing that's going to change that now is spending the next month or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 having an election and trying to put together a government. The government needs to focus on its work of increasing housing supply and improving affordability.
Deputy